Good morning, everybody. And sorry about that. We got the mic sorted, all figured out. Welcome to the Backmarkers F1 show, Bahrain qualifying live stream show. We're very excited to be here for the first qualifying session of 2022, which is just about set to get started in about 10 minutes time or so. I'm your host, Chris Cato, and I'm just going to bring in my fellow backmarker joining me for this stream this morning, Tyler McDonald, who is just logging on now. Just Tyler connecting his audio, so we should have him very shortly. Tyler, just jump in whenever you can hear me.
Hey, Chris, how's it going?
Hey, good morning. Not too bad. How about you?
Good morning. No, not too bad. Getting ready for some exciting F1 qualifying.
Yeah, me too. It was. I was just saying off the top. There's not many minutes left until the session actually gets started, so we'll kind of just get right into our predictions and everything. Now, watching free practice yesterday was actually quite a bit of fun because it was one of the very first free practice sessions in a while where it was really exciting because the order was all mixed up. You really didn't know who was going to be out there. And really, I mean, we could look at the FP3 times in the middle of the screen here, but really it's the FP2 times that are most representative in terms of track conditions and time of day. So just quickly, who impressed you the most yesterday? Who surprised you the most in free practice? And then obviously, who are you taking for pole in a few minutes' time?
I think the two teams that really surprised me, or I should say the two drivers, was obviously Pierre Gasly with his phenomenal running in FP1. And, the AlphaTauri looks pretty quick a lot around Bahrain so far this weekend. But the other one that really impressed me, and if you go back to our season preview, my predictions, you'll understand why this surprised me. But Fernando Alonso and Alpine surprised me, having some really good running over the first couple of practices. And obviously, other than losing their side pod, that was Esteban Ocon who lost his side pod on the main straight in FP1. There really was a relatively error-free runnings for them. So I was impressed, and I'm excited to see where they end up slotting in during this qualifying session.
Yeah, the other surprise for me personally was to see Alfa Romeo kind of
Mm.
a little bit up there, right? I mean, I know Bottas obviously had the engine issues in FP1, which is obviously the main concern, which we talked
He's on the
about
throttle with a
in the
load of
podcast.
understeering.
Oh, sorry about that. About the podcast or just a few days ago was the actual reliability. But I was good to see their pace so far. Even the rookie Guan Yu Zhou was really good. And also Haas as well, right? I mean, Kevin Magnussen and Mick Schumacher were some really good times so far. So I kind of think that this is going to be sort of a wide open qualifying session. So who are you taking for pole, driver and team?
I am going to go with my title favorite, Charles Leclerc, for pole position in Ferrari. I think they've looked really, really good, other than Charles' spin in FP1. It's really the only issue that Ferrari has had this weekend. And I think he's going to edge out Max Verstappen. So I'll do top three. I'll go Leclerc one, Verstappen two, and Carlos Sainz three.
Okay,
How about
yeah,
you?
yeah, very interesting. I think I'll go with Max Verstappen for pole, just ahead
Mm,
of the two Ferraris with Leclerc and Sainz.
okay, so similar or same three, just in different order.
Yeah, I really think. Actually, just quickly, just checking out the chat there. We got greetings from Amsterdam from Simon. So, good afternoon to
Sorry.
you. I think yeah, it would be afternoon in the Netherlands. So, good afternoon to you,
Yeah.
Simon. Yeah, if you guys are watching right now and in the chat, just let us know where you're watching from. Say hello if you've got any comments or make your own predictions in the chat room as well. So that would be greatly appreciated. So yeah, I think just seeing from the order yesterday, it was clear that you're going to have possibly a possibility of a Leclerc and Verstappen battle this season. But obviously, we're not exactly sure where the order is going to fill out just yet, and it could change by mid-season time. So, was there any team in particular that when you were watching just free practice that kind of maybe disappointed you? I mean, I know I have one team in particular on my mind, but I was wondering if what caught your eye in terms of something that maybe you didn't expect to see so far in the free practice sessions.
Yeah, I thought Williams was going to be a lot further up the grid than what they are, or at least closer. Now, I don't know how maybe they'll come out with something in qualifying, but it just really seems like they have the right idea with that car, but it's just not being executed as they would like. So, I mean, I'm hoping for Williams to be up there a little bit more, but so far they've been the team that disappointed me. You?
Yeah, yeah, Williams was one of them, but in particular for me it was McLaren who kind of
Mm,
really disappointed me. I'm not exactly sure where the pace went in that car. I mean, they had a pretty decent testing. Obviously, in Bahrain they were really good, or excuse me, in Barcelona they were really good. And Bahrain they had the brake issues, but I did not expect them to be sort of that far off the pace. Now I know McLaren traditionally don't do crazy times on free practice Fridays and even on Saturday mornings, but still I was surprised to see them so far down and behind the likes of Haas and Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they showed so much pace in testing that I'm kind of confused on what's going on with them right now in FP1 and FP2 and FP3. I mean, it's been really odd, and I'm not sure. Maybe something will come out in qualifying as well, but it's really come out of nowhere as a team that has fallen off the cliff of things when really they looked really good to start things off.
Yeah, we'll see if they can pick it up with qualifying. Just about set to get started in about 8 minutes and 30 seconds. Of course, if you're new to these live streams, it's obviously a bit of a challenge to try and sync up in terms of where our commentary is and where you're watching in your particular area of the world. But we're going to try and kind of give you guys an update as to where the session timing is, just so that we're not commenting on too crazy of a difference in terms of a time delay. While we have some time, we can look at the free practice 3 times as well. And again, free practice 3, not very representative of what we're going to see in this session and in the race because it's obviously during the day. But you did have Verstappen in P1, Charles Leclerc in second, and Sergio Perez in P3. So kind of getting ahead there of the Mercedes of George Russell, and then Carlos Sainz rounding out the top 5 in 5th place. And interesting, too, that Lewis Hamilton really struggling so far this weekend. Seems to be a little bit behind his teammate at the moment. Yesterday, he did have a DRS issue, which limited his single lap pace. So the discrepancy yesterday in his time was really because of that. But even just seeing his time this morning, too, I mean, it's 5th place. And his old teammate, Valtteri Bottas, not that far behind in 7th.
No, I mean in FP2 he was ahead of Lewis Hamilton. So
Right.
if you would have told Bottas that he would be ahead of Hamilton in the standings after FP2, I'm sure he would have been very happy with that result, as that didn't happen much last year. So it's good for Valtteri, but at the same time, you got to wonder what different setups are Russell and Hamilton running between the two of them. I'd be surprised if they didn't run different setups and they found one that worked for both drivers and run with that. But yeah, they said they'd be off the mark. Now who knows? Maybe they're sandbagging and they'll beat the grid by half a second. Who knows? But it is Mercedes, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be that way.
Yeah, that's totally possible. And I just want to get to another live chat question here from Brandon, who's asking, who's getting knocked out in the first round? Very good question, Brandon, and actually
Yeah.
very interesting because I think it's almost impossible to tell who's going to get knocked out. I think, I don't know. I think I might put the 2 Williams in there for now, just from
Yeah.
what I've seen in the qualifying. And if the McLaren pace is not going to improve, I mean, we could see a McLaren in the bottom 5, such as Daniel Ricciardo, for example. And then after that, I think you probably put Nico Hulkenberg in there just because he is a little bit behind Stroll this
Mm.
session. Not by much, though, but it's expected considering the fact that he hasn't driven at all this year and even last year. And so, yeah, I think that we might see that in sort of the 5 drivers who are going to go out. What do you think?
Yeah, I would say the 2 Williams as well. I'm going to disagree on Hulkenberg. I'm going to go Esteban Ocon will be out.
Oh,
One of the McLarens, I'm going to go Daniel Ricciardo. And I think a surprise one, just from how his teammates doing, I'm going to go Yuki Tsunoda out in Q1.
okay.
Might not be right, but
Yeah, I mean, considering, well, you had Gasly in P1 for free practice 1 yesterday,
I did,
for
yes,
whatever
but
that's worth.
I find there's a weird dynamic between those two. I mean, hopefully Yuki does better, but I feel like Pierre has a lot more to give than his teammates right now.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. Okay, so currently on our F1 TV feed, we have the opening credits, which are rolling. So yeah, very cool, interesting opening credits this season. So what I'm gonna
Yeah, it
do,
looks great.
yeah, they've really gone full out with the sort of studio look, and obviously for a new era, they're changing it up a little bit. So I will bring the live timing in to the middle of the screen there. So the live timing is slightly a little bit ahead of our feed, but we're going to be watching and commenting on what we're seeing, of course, out on track. Tyler, you've got the driver tracker as well at your
Yep.
disposal. So we'll be kind of giving some updates through there. And yeah, if you guys are in the chat, just follow along with us. Any comments, we're gonna just keep an eye on it, just so we're not missing any of your questions. And yeah, I think we're only just a few minutes away now to get started.
Yeah, like if you guys didn't join this last year, usually what we'll do is I'll run the driver tracker and have the stats up for each sector, just so we can kind of get an idea of who's pulling in what sort of sectors. So we'll try to feed you guys that information as we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Have they got it? Is your feed showing anything on your end?
It's not, but I luckily have the TV going in front of me, so I also have have that as well. My
Okay.
cable box.
Because they on my F1 TV feed, they just ran the opening credits, and now it's just like a red screen.
Yeah, I have that too on my F1 TV screen as well.
Okay, so
So
it's not just me.
so it's not just you.
Good start, F1.
What I will say is that they are running C3, C2, and C1 tires for this weekend, of course. And Bahrain does look magical under the lights on my TV right now. So 19 degrees air temperature, track temp is 26 degrees Celsius. Wind's not too strong, so they won't be fighting the wind too much, but the track temp obviously much lower just because of it being at night in Bahrain, not the 39 degrees like we saw in FP1. And David Croft and Martin Brundle are back for another season, as we would love.
Yeah, and just a quick feature that I noted for any of the F1 TV customers out there, they added or I guess it's kind of similar to what the section they had last year with the pit lane channel, but they have another F1 live commentary feed with Ben Edwards was commentating with Jolyon Palmer, and to be honest with you, I actually enjoyed it more than the Sky Sports feed, which I mean I do like Martin Brundle and David Croft, but I think that those two are actually quite a solid commentary team.
Yeah, no, I really liked it as well as watching them for practice. I was listening to them and I thought they did a really good job. So that's going to be something to listen to this year as well. Just of note as well, new rule this year. The top 10 in qualifying no longer have to start on their Q2 tires. They have free tire choice during the race. So that's another interesting rule change for this year that kind of went under the table. I didn't really know that was a rule until yesterday when it was mentioned. So no longer will we see strategy play a factor in Q2 because there won't be having to start on their best time tire in Q2.
Yeah, which I think is going to provide some more variety in race strategies and everything. So I'm kind of glad that they got rid of that rule. They've been talking about it for a few years now, but I think this was a good year to just start fresh.
Yeah, exactly. New car, and no, I think it's a right idea as well. So smart move by the FIA. We don't get to say that too often. So
Well, yeah, it's big changes for the FIA this year. They have a new race director, or kind of like two new race directors, really. They're sort of sharing the responsibilities. And then just a few days ago, they, as we see, I'm pretty sure that's Kevin Magnuson's daughter up on the screen.
yes,
I saw some social posts of her with Kevin in the car, which is really neat.
yeah, no, it's really cute. It's awesome to see once again Kevin back in F1. So I hope he does well. I think he's going to get out of Q1. And the Haas looks really good this year, so I'm excited. You know, all Ferrari cars, that Ferrari engine seems to be putting out a lot of horsepower right now because all Ferrari customer cars look very, very quick.
Yeah, you had top five were powered, or excuse me, you had five cars that were powered by Ferrari in the top 10 yesterday in FP2. So, yeah, they made a big step considering where they were just in 2020. And it was really the focus of last season. So it looks like it's paying off for them so far. So, Tyler, you're going to
Uh,
be my eyes for the first few minutes because the screen just went red again. Jesus.
no worries. I can do that. Luckily, I have the TV going.
Yeah, good call on that one. Yeah, and my little studio bedroom that I have set up here, I only have the TV as just a monitor. So there we go. Okay, we're back now.
I do want to mention Lewis Hamilton's helmet looks phenomenal this year as it's being shown on screen right now as he's strapping up to get into the car. The bright green bringing him back to his karting days. I think it looks really, really cool.
Yeah, I'm glad that he went to something a little bit different, and it's hard to miss. I
Yeah,
mean,
it is
it's
hard to miss.
at first when he went out on track, I thought Valentino Rossi was in Formula One for a second there. I was like,
So first cars are entering the track, and Nicholas Latifi and Alex Albon are out, along with the two Alpha Tauris, Yuki Tsunoda and Pierre Gasly, head out on the track, and lots of brake dust being sent out by Yuki Tsunoda on that first little brake test. So something to watch out for him.
Yeah, it looks like I was just trying to refresh here the live timing in the middle of the screen because it was showing one of the drivers actually out on the medium compound tire.
Let me see. I think both Alpha Tauris are out on softs, which they are, and I would presume both Williams are as well, but I haven't seen the Williams on the screen yet.
Yeah, that's what it's showing. Currently, Tsunoda with fastest first sector.
And it's showing Albon and Latifi. Oh, they're just doing their outlaps right now. So, showing Albon and Latifi out on mediums.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So Albon's gonna be first to start his flying lap here as he enters the final corner and heads down the main straight right now. And obviously he's gonna go purple.
Yeah.
First one out.
Yeah, this is kind of like just that early little bit of a lull that we get in every single Q1.
Yes.
I guess maybe quickly just before the hot laps really get going, what's your thoughts, from the broadcasting background that we have from the new set of graphics that we're seeing? Of course, not just the timing tower, but we've seen a different team radio, different standings graphics. So what's your thoughts on it?
I think it looks really, really clean. I really like the new graphics. I thought they did a very good job. Just very, like I mentioned, very clean looking. Everything's bold and is easily readable. So no, I thought they did a really good job with it.
Yeah, they've been really this new set of graphics and sort of broadcast package started back in 2018, and they've made little improvements every single year. But as we mentioned off the top of the show, new era 2022, sorry, I can't speak this morning. 2022, it's a good time to kind of start everything fresh. So yeah, it looks nice and clean as we are seeing Tsunoda out on a flying lap, and you've also got his teammate Pierre Gasly, who just set a quick. Although they're showing both of them in purple sectors, but I think
I know it's Gasly with the purple sector.
Yeah.
He's got purple almost everything right now.
And just one comment I'll make visually in terms of the cars going out on track into turn one, it really seems like the entry speeds are much higher this season. I mean, they're really sending it in there into turn one, and I know the cars are heavier and they tend to understeer much more, as we're seeing now with Tsunoda going through turn 11, but the entry speed seems a lot quicker than it was last season.
Yeah, it does. They seem to be really, putting it in there, which is good to see. Just if we're going off sector times, Gasly has a second on the Williams just in sector one. And I think the Williams must have backed out of it because he had almost 2.5 seconds on them in sector two. So it must have been an installation lap for the two Williams as they peel off into the pits on those medium tires. So they won't even set a lap time.
Yeah. So our current F1 TV feed, or mine personally at any rate, is at just 14 minutes right now, 13:59, 13:58, just to give you guys an example of where we are. We only got Pierre Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda, the only two drivers to have set a lap time currently at the moment. Other drivers currently out on track. We see Norris and Ricciardo setting times as well, the two Williams that you just said, Tyler, in the pits as we now see on our screens.
It looks like Verstappen and Perez are out as well, so the Red Bull's getting a time out there.
Just interesting to check also, we put up a poll in our live chat. If you guys are watching, please do answer it if you haven't already. And we asked the question, which team will take pole position in Bahrain? And 40% believe it will be Red Bull. 37% will believe it's Ferrari. Only 17% think that Mercedes are going to take pole, and 7% voted for another team.
So Ricciardo not going purple in the first sector. Neither is Lando Norris. Lando Norris does have some purple subsectors though, so gives you a bit that he's a little bit closer to the pace of the Alpha Tauris.
Also, guys, we're just trying to pump in a little bit of the natural FX sound from the track. If it's too low or too high, just let us know in the chat and we can adjust it. Just kind of give it a feel like we're at the track, Tyler.
I wish I was in Bahrain right now. It'd be a lot warmer.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Yeah.
So here comes Danny Rick.
Well, Norris just went purple in the second sector.
So Norris goes second, and Ricardo goes fourth.
So let's see. We got a 133.1 for Norris. We're just trying to see what Ricardo was able to do to see the difference.
133.6.
Ooh, okay.
For Ricardo, so half a second behind his teammate.
So it looks like not much has changed since last season just yet.
No. I also have to wonder how much that time away from the car affected Danny Rick. 3 days less running than his teammates, so that could play a little bit of a factor as well. I'm not sure if it's worth 5/10, but it could play a factor as we're seeing more cars really get out on the track now.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. I mean, Norris did get a ton of running last week in Bahrain, which is huge.
Yeah.
And we're expecting Verstappen to go P1 with this lap, setting purple sector 1 and 2. Yeah, and he goes quickest by 1.1 second. But interestingly enough, Perez quicker in the middle sector, and I have seen Verstappen losing quite a little bit of time in that middle sector in FP2 as well.
Yeah, that was an interesting point that you bring up, because that's where the Ferraris made up a lot of time, was in that middle sector. As Perez goes P2, wow, he lost a lot of time in sector 3 there. Half a second behind his teammates as the Haas start their flying lap. Stroll, Bottas, and Albon is starting his flying lap. Alonso. So a lot of laps will be taking place right now. Interesting. Russell and Hamilton still the only two drivers not on track.
Oh, so they're not even on the track?
Not on the track yet.
Wow, interesting.
Not sure if they're trying to save a set of tires or what's going on there. There's a traffic jam.
Oh, yeah.
Starting to build up once more as Ocon tries to clear the traffic, and Nico Hulkenberg will start his flying lap behind him. We'll get a little bit of a tow behind Ocon as Ocon crosses the line and goes P3. So, very nice lap from Esteban.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to... Well, I don't know, maybe. There's still 10 minutes to go. He could be out in Q1. But this is the driver, or the team I'm really interested in this session is Haas, as we see riding on board with Kevin Magnussen at the moment, setting personal bests in the first two sectors, but I believe this is his first flying lap.
Yeah, first flying lap for Magnussen as he goes around the final corner here. And, big catch of oversteer as he tries to get on the power. He enters the DRS zone. He's going to go across the line, and
Wow.
P2.
Okay. Well, and point to your screen at the bottom there, Tyler. Valtteri Bottas with the fastest first sector.
Wow. Look at that. So Kevin Magnussen, 0.3 behind Max Verstappen. And you mentioned Bottas, fastest first sector, a good second sector as well. Leclerc now puts up the fastest first sector, and Bottas is going to come across the line. And he goes second. Wow. 100th behind Verstappen. Valtteri Bottas with a phenomenal lap.
Yeah, 31.9 for Bottas there, and you're right there, Tyler. 1/100th of a second in between it, and just Kevin Magnussen as well, only 0.3 behind Max Verstappen. Fernando Alonso jumped up into fourth. He is really only a few 1,000ths just ahead of Sergio Perez in the Red Bull, as we see Leclerc, who I think is probably even going to smash Max Verstappen's time here.
Yeah, it looks like it as he comes around the final quarter. He gets a little bit of oversteer as well for himself up through the DRS zone, and he's going to cross the line and, 0.4 ahead of Max Verstappen in P1. Sainz comes and crosses the line in a second here as Ricardo starts his lap. That's Lando Norris. Sainz goes second, 1/10 behind his teammates.
Okay, very interesting. Now we wait for the Mercedes to really show us the sandbags if they're taking them off, or what their real true pace is going to be.
So if we take a look at the disappointment so far, Aston Martin, Stroll 14th, Hulkenberg 15th, 1.8 and 1.9 seconds respectively off the pace. Latifi 2.1 seconds off the pace in last right now. Sonoda 2.1 seconds off the pace in second last. Ricardo and Norris not close to the times as well. So something to watch out there for. And while Russell's losing a lot of time in sector 1, 4/10 down.
I think you were right there in your predictions really for your bottom 5 though, for looking at the moment. Daniel Ricciardo down there, Yuki Tsunoda as well, and then Nicholas Latifi. But yeah, really interesting to see where these two Mercedes are going to fit in. Can they get at least into the top 5, I would hope.
So far right now, I think they're going to be around Mick Schumacher, Esteban Ocon, 8th and 9th here. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, Pierre Gasly also going much quicker on his second lap, purple in the first sector, as George Russell will be the first Mercedes driver to cross the line.
Wow.
Not sure if we're going to see Yeah, go ahead.
I was saying, look at the porpoising on that Mercedes. They really haven't figured that out. Yeah.
And here
really haven't figured that out.
Wow, only 8th for Russell. Hamilton, a much better lap, gets himself up into 5th, but still, is that 8/10 off of Leclerc's time?
Yeah, 8/10 off, and he had a little bit of tow from George Russell as well, as Pierre Gasly comes up over the line, and Gasly goes 7th. What I really like about this, Chris, is that we're seeing one teammate have a much better lap than the other than the Ferraris. But in the top 10 right now, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different teams in the top 10, if I'm counting right.
And okay, it looks like Hamilton's just on a cooldown lap. I just heard the audio, and it sounded almost like he was having some sort of an issue, but no, he's just on a cool lap. And yeah, just to make more on your comment there, it's going to be nice to see that variety. Maybe just a little bit disappointing early on to see the differences maybe as we get to the back markers, for example, in terms of the 2.1 second gap like you mentioned with Latifi. But, I mean, I guess that's kind of normal in F1 terms between the worst teams and the best teams. But really the stars of those first runs of qualifying, for me anyways, are Valtteri Bottas and Kevin Magnussen in 4th and 6th place, respectively, and really only a few 100ths of a second here or there from being in the top 3, really. At least in Bottas's
absolutely.
case.
And I'm just listening to the F1 feed, and Daniel Ricciardo is really complaining about understeer on that McLaren, so they're going to make a front wing adjustment.
Yeah, I'm just still so surprised with this Alfa Romeo. I mean, I think we all picked them to be 10th in our constructor standings predictions, but for me it was more so the question of reliability, and after FP1 on Friday it was like, oh no, here goes bad luck Bottas once again. But 4th place at the moment, maybe they've got the engines a little bit more turned up than Red Bull, as we're seeing a replay of Verstappen going wide at the exit of the final corner, which is maybe why he lost a little bit of time. But it's still, I mean, I don't think the engine modes can really, or at least the energy deployment can get them that much of a difference.
No, I don't think so. That's a really, really impressive lap. And what has me interested too, I think his teammate, Guan Yu Zhao, is 8/10 behind Bottas. So that's a big gap for Zhao to be picking up.
But if you look at it from his perspective, he is ahead of both McLarens. He is ahead of Alex Albon at the moment. And Yuki Tsunoda, so that's a pretty solid start, I think, if you can get into Q2 here.
Yeah, absolutely. As now the train to start back on track is happening, everyone coming out to get their final laps in. 3 minutes left in the session.
Yeah, not sure how many viewers are in the chat at the moment watching us, but thank you everybody for joining us as we're nearing the end of Q1 here. Chris Cato alongside Tyler McDonald for our first live stream, and hopefully first of many live streams this season. And a very...
just want to mention Sven in the chat. saying, "Hey guys, this could be quite a surprising qualifying session. Aston Martin seems to be slow as well, which they don't seem to be having much pace as of right now. But you're right, this is turning into a very interesting qualifying session."
Yeah, what's up, Sven? Remember, long time or not a long time? I think you joined us roughly last season around this time
That's
for
right.
our live streams from Holland. So good to have you back, Sven. We really appreciate the support and appreciate everybody listening and watching us currently at the moment. Jump in the live chat. Of course, we're going to have a little bit of a break in between Q1 and Q2, so we'll have a little bit more time to get to your chats at the moment. So just under 2 minutes to go in this first session. The drivers currently at risk. We have Lando Norris in 15th, the two Aston Martins, as Sven mentioned, Lance Stroll and Nico Hülkenberg. Daniel Ricciardo as well, who's currently on a flying lap in 18th, and then Yuki Tsunoda and Nicholas Latifi are the drivers who need to improve, or else they will be out in Q1.
George Russell going up into P5 with his last lap as well. So just a few hundredths of a second ahead of Lewis Hamilton.
It still boggles me watching my screen right now. Bottas, Russell, Hamilton. That's credit to Valtteri. That's a great lap.
Phenomenal lap, and he's off about to cross the line for another lap as well, as we ride along with Daniel Ricciardo, and he's up a little bit on Norris, who's in that last safe spot, 15th place to head to Q2. Kevin Magnussen seems like he can't improve on his time, at least on his Sector 1, and Norris isn't improving on his Sector 1 time either.
And of course, the benchmark time that they are being measured to are, in the case of Daniel Ricciardo, is Lando Norris, who's obviously the cutoff point at 15th, and Kevin Magnussen has the benchmark of Charles Leclerc as well as Lando Norris.
So Ricciardo coming close to that time. He's about 1/10 ahead of that time. And hopefully that front wing adjustment makes a difference for him. It seems to be this lap. He'll be about 5/10 better than his last lap. So we'll see how much this front wing change does for Ricciardo as he enters the final corner.
Only 15th.
Wow. So I don't know if that time's going to be safe. As Lando Norris is going to come flying over the line. Magnussen up over the line, and he improves. He goes 5th fastest.
That'll be safe.
Ahead of both Mercedes. Norris, wow, there's the pace. He goes 6th fastest ahead of both Mercedes. So Ricciardo in the bottom 5.
So Stroll
Here comes Lance
improve,
Stroll.
Yeah.
Can't improve. That Aston Martin, what's going on with them?
There we go. Mick Schumacher as well up into 11th. Now we've got Guan Yu Zhou, who can still improve, but I think that should be a safe time there for the young Mick.
So Tsunoda doesn't improve, does improve, but can't get out. And you're right, there goes Guan Yu Zhou into 13th. Nico Hülkenberg.
Wow.
17th.
I mean, I know only 17th, but he did out-qualify Lance Stroll. That's going to be a very disappointing day for Lance Stroll, and flashbacks to Silverstone in 2020 where the same thing happened. But I believe that is it in terms of the bottom 5. I don't think any of them can improve. We've got Esteban Ocon, who goes quicker in 6th, but he was already safe anyways. And of course the Mercedes have already went back into the pits. Sergio Perez jumps back up into 11th, but he was safe as well.
So Nicky Latifi didn't improve on his last lap. I'm not sure what happened on his last lap, but I would expect him not to be 9/10 behind Alex Albon, so he must have had a moment on his second lap.
Yeah, we weren't really seeing it on the live feed there, so I'm not sure what happened. Got team radio coming.
We're P18, I'm afraid. Okay. All right, understood.
All right.
Yeah, very dejected Ricciardo.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't know what's going on there with Ricciardo so far. I know it's only the first race of the season, but you know, at any rate, that's a pretty big surprise, and it was looking like there was almost going to be 2 McLarens out in the first Q1 session there. But so the bottom 5 out in Q1, we have Nicholas Latifi, the 2 Aston Martins of Stroll and Hülkenberg, Daniel Ricciardo, and Yuki Tsunoda, the 5 drivers out in qualifying. Any surprises there for you in Q1?
I mean, obviously Bottas and Magnussen, I think, are my 2 biggest surprises. Good for Alex Albon for getting out of Q1. getting into Q2. So good for him to put a good lap down. And maybe there's a little bit of pace in that Williams that we're just not seeing out of Latifi just yet. But for me, no, the main ones are the times from Bottas and Magnussen. How about you?
Yeah, I would probably agree with you as well. I think we've got Hulkenberg radio here.
We are out, Nico, but that was a good lap. P17.
Yeah, Hulkenberg not happy either, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that's obviously the racing driver, the competitor in him, but it's a good, solid performance. I think he was, just jumped in the car on Friday. I know he's probably been doing a lot of work in the simulator, which kind of gives him more of an advantage than Kevin Magnussen, for example. But still, regardless, to outqualify the driver who has done 6 days of preseason testing is a really, really big, big performance for him. And I think Stroll will be scratching his head a little bit there. Just going to point out the stat you see here in the middle of your screen. That's the first double Q1 exit for Team Silverstone in Bahrain since 2009. So Team Silverstone, of course, being Aston Martin, and back in the days when they were Racing Point and Force India.
Yeah, definitely disappointing, and something to go back to the drawing board about possibly. What could be the issue for Aston Martin here?
Yeah, very, very interesting first session there, though, as well. And I think we're going to get a little bit more, a couple of the top drivers like Verstappen and the Ferraris probably holding a couple of tenths in their back pockets. But now we're going to get to the point where we're really going to see them, kind of stretching their legs a little bit there. But it looks like Mercedes, the struggles are real because, that first session there, they weren't particularly too competitive there.
Nice for Ferrari. They only had to do one lap as well, so saving a set of tires for Q2 and Q3. I guess same with Max Verstappen. I don't know if Sergio Perez went out for a second lap.
He did because he jumped up to 11th on the final section there.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry.
Yeah, and let's just quickly comment on Haas there as well, guys. The live chat is open at the moment while we do have a few minutes before Q2 starts. So comment what you thought of that first Q1 session, what surprised you, what really impressed you, which drivers impressed you the most. But what a phenomenal session there, firstly, from Kevin Magnussen, P5 in Q1, and then Mick Schumacher as well, getting up there into P13. Both cars into Q2, first race of the season. And I think they've got a chance to maybe even make it into Q3. It's going to be very close now in this next session, but just a phenomenal job from Haas so far.
Yeah, really, really impressive from Haas. I mean, I hope that that pace can continue for that team.
Yeah, I hope so as well. But who are you looking at now as we go the next 5 drivers to possibly exit out of Q2? I think it's a lot hard. It's going to be even harder now to predict this one because I think the lap times are going to be so much closer. But who are you looking at as the 5 drivers to exit out of Q2?
Yeah, like you said, going to be a lot harder to predict, but I think I'm going to go with Zhao will be out, Albon out. I'm going to go. I'll go Norris out as my kind of surprise, and then Mick Schumacher and Esteban Ocon. Those will be my 5.
Yeah.
Yourself?
I think I would probably agree with that top 5 there as well. I think Kevin Magnussen is going to surprise everybody and get himself into Q3. I'm going to go with Schumacher in 11th. Very, very close, but just misses it off the cuff there. But yeah, I think I would agree with your top 5 there. But like I said, it's so difficult to tell. And as we kind of saw there in that first session with Latifi, we're not exactly sure what happened, but the mistake that he made, if you don't improve just a couple of tenths here or there, you're going to be really finding yourself in a bad position because the drivers are so close. But yeah, I'm curious now. Of course, we don't have the Q2 rule that we did last season, right? So we're not really going to be playing the game of which drivers are coming out on the medium and so forth. But I think as we're seeing now, the 2 Ferraris out on screen right now, they're really confirming so far their pace in testing, as green light is just came onto the screen, and we've got Alex Albon as the first car out here. But I think it's going to be, with Ferrari and Red Bull, the battle is going to come down to really the drivers and who can maximize the most out of the car at the really critical moments, which are coming up just in a few minutes.
Yeah, as they just showed Daniel Ricciardo walking away from the garage and down the pit lane to the media pen. It'll be interesting to hear what Danny Rick has to say in the media pen. But no, right now it's just Albon all alone on the track himself, so no one else following him.
Yeah, so let me just turn this over back to the live timing.
So, set of soft tires. I'm sure it's a used set of soft tires for Alex Albon. That would be my prediction.
So still currently the only one out on track at the moment. Q2 just getting underway. Just for reference, the time that I have here, 13:50, 49, 48, 47, 46. Just to give you guys an idea. Of course, always difficult to line it up perfectly, but thank you very much everybody that's in the chat and that is watching us from around the world. Really appreciate it.
Simon saying Nick Crowley's money is well spent. Well, I would have to agree with that right now.
Well, I'll tell you what, if Haas is confirming this pace, from today and on to the rest of the season, their strategy of focusing all of 2021 on this season is going to really, really pay dividends. And I mean, last year was such a painful year for both drivers and for the team. But if it's going to end up seeing them in like 6th or 5th place in the constructors, it's going to be totally worth it.
Absolutely, yeah, it will be definitely the strategic play of the season from last year, just to focus their development. So, as Alex Albon is working his way through turn 4,
and I'll tell you what, just to
and
quickly
through 5, 6. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, just to quickly wrap up on Haas, I think that seeing Ferrari's pace so far as well, and we'll see where they end up at the end of Q3, but seeing the pace of the Ferrari is also kind of a good indication as to where the Haas can be as well, because they've gone down not an identical development route, but a similar development route with the wide side pod design, and they've got obviously a little bit of their own flavor added into the design, but I think that it's looking like the wider side pod philosophy is going to be the one, at least in the early part of the season, to be successful.
Yeah, it seems that way, other than the Aston Martin, which has that very wide side pod design, maybe too wide. And they're seeing that play out as Albon is about to enter the turn 13 and the turn 13 to 14 backstretch as a whole bunch of cars start coming out on track, both Haas's, both Red Bulls, both Alfa Romeos, both Ferraris, and both Alpines heading out on the track. As Albon comes and goes, oh, nope, he's going to go into the pits. So he aborts that lap.
Interesting, yeah. Of course, Q2 is only a 15-minute session, so always gets called into the weighbridge as well. Good time.
Yes. Good thing he was first out.
Yeah. So every single driver currently out on an out lap except for Lando Norris, as we got Kevin I think that, yeah, that's Kevin Magnussen's child once again. I'm not sure if we haven't really seen it too much used yet in this qualifying session, but I'm sure that you saw some of the driver visor cams from yesterday. There was about three or four drivers, Latifi and Norris and Zhou, who was wearing some of the helmet cams there, which is great. If we're going to get multiple drivers in a session or in a race to use, that's fantastic. But I wanted to maybe get your thoughts, or just my comments I'll throw in there, is that it's really difficult to see the apexes for the drivers now because they have those little arrow fins covering the front tires there. I mean, the apex to the corners are pretty much completely blind because it's covered.
Yeah, visibility is definitely not as grand as you would hope so if you're an F1 driver, but I really like the idea of the visor cams. I mentioned that in years past they have this in NASCAR and they've had this in IndyCar for a long, long time, so it's nice to see it finally make its way to F1.
It really is, and I think that as the years go by, they're gonna, really shore up that technology a little bit, because I think it's the issue with the current cameras right now is that they're sort of placed on the side of the helmet, so it's not exactly directly middle, eye level view. I mean, it's still fantastic regardless, but I think that they're gonna really kind of shore it up as the season goes on. But getting back to the action out on track, we've got Kevin Magnussen, who will be one of the first cars to finish a flying lap. Of course, he's setting purple first sector, but that was beaten by Verstappen.
Well, Magnussen going to turn 13 now and down that 13-14 backstretch. Side stretch, if you want to call it, maybe.
Yeah, one of the 3 long straights on this circuit, so good test for the Ferrari power unit in the first race of the year.
So Magnussen will cross the line and obviously go P1, as he is the only one to cross the line so far, and it's a 1:31.4. So a solid lap for Magnussen, and Mick Schumacher is going to cross the line behind him, and he is going to go 5/10 behind his teammate, with Verstappen going obviously P1, 7/10 ahead of Magnussen at 1:30.7. So there's a nice lap from Max.
Yeah, good lap there, and again, gonna keep giving him the credit. Kevin Magnussen with another fantastic lap. 5/10 is a pretty big gap there. As here we go, we got the helmet camera on Charles Leclerc, I believe it was, who goes up into second place.
Wow, 6/10 off Max Verstappen.
Yeah, I don't think the gap's that big. I believe he made some sort of a mistake somewhere there. As just checking
out. Martin Brundle just said he thinks it was used tires on the Ferraris.
Oh, okay. That would explain the gap then as well. Just want to give a quick shout out to John in the chat who says hello from Nicaragua.
Oh!
Hello to you, John. Appreciate you coming and watching us this morning or afternoon in Nicaragua. Really appreciate that. Great to see so many viewers from around the world watching F1 and choosing to watch the first session here on the Backmarkers F1 Show channel. Appreciate all you guys' support. So coming up to about 7 minutes 30 seconds left here in this Q session. Only driver to not set a time is Alex Albon, who, like you mentioned, Tyler, came in after his first flying lap was aborted.
So kind of surprising for me right now is Pierre Gasly sitting in 13th, 2.1 seconds off Verstappen. I thought he'd be a little bit quicker than that. So we'll see. We'll see how AlphaTauri can do.
Yeah, just looking down the rest of the order, Sainz as well. It must have been another use set there, Tyler. I think Ferrari going with the use set strategy because he's almost a second off of what Verstappen did, and a little bit in trouble there in 7th place, but I think Ferrari's going to have plenty pace in hand. Now, as we go further down, some of the outsiders looking in here for Q3 are actually Lando Norris, who, looking at it there, is about roughly 4.5, 5/10 behind the Haas of Mick Schumacher. Again, we're not exactly sure of if that was an optimal lap there for Lando Norris, but nonetheless, Mick Schumacher well within a chance of getting into Q3, as Valtteri Bottas is just in at the moment in 10th place. And I guess, Tyler, we can give a shout out to Alpine, because I think you predicted Esteban Ocon to go out in Q1, but both drivers currently in the moment at Q3.
Yeah, I picked Ocon to go out in Q1. I picked him to go out in Q2, and they're impressing me so far as Alpine.
I think they'll be a hit or miss team this year. Either they'll be really fantastic and on it, or they'll be out in Q1.
So far, my bottom 2 constructor standing picks aren't looking good, because I had Alfa Romeo last and Alpine second last, and they're changing my mind pretty quick.
Yeah, they really are.
Oh. Issue with Kevin Magnussen.
Oh, really?
They just took the front wing off. A suspension issue, possibly? As Alex Albon starts his flying lap to try and climb into Q3, which would be a big task for him, but it would be great to see the young Thai British driver.
And we're kind of seeing Williams still dealing with the porpoising issues, or the bottoming out of the rear end there. As you could just kind of see the onboard, if you're just paying attention to his helmet, especially on the straights, you can see a lot of bouncing. Similar issues that Mercedes have as well. Williams and Mercedes kind of have a similar concept in terms of the lean side pod design. Williams a little more conservative with their skimming out of the side pods. Of course, Mercedes are on the pretty extreme end of it. But currently at the moment, we're looking at the 2 Mercedes drivers in 5th and 6th place, and almost 7 and 8/10 off of the first time of Max Verstappen there. So it's going to be interesting to see where Alex Albon fits in here.
Yeah, his head's everywhere. And I mean, I was watching on the onboards with Mercedes as well yesterday, and I mean, their heads were all going all over the place as well. So it doesn't look like a very comfortable ride. I hope they have a good chiropractor and dentist,
Yeah, good
as
physios
Max
as well.
Verstappen,
Yeah.
Max Verstappen said last year. As Albon will come and cross the line, which is a DRS zone, and 13th fastest. So won't be able to. I'm not sure he's going to go for another lap. But 8 tenths behind Bottas for that 10th position.
Yeah. Yeah, with 4 minutes left to go, roughly. Unless he's fueled for another lap, we're not exactly sure. But they're showing replay now of Kevin Magnussen into turn 1. Let's see if we see some sort of an issue with Team Radio.
Be careful with the power steering.
Hydraulic issue.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I don't know if they can get it fixed in time for Q3 if he still makes it.
Yeah, power steering and hydraulics. So, I mean, would make the car very tough to turn for Magnussen. Mick Schumacher has gone out, so Magnussen's still in the pits. And what I'm going to do here, Chris, is I'm just going to put my driver cam on Kevin Magnussen. And, won't give you it because he's in the pits. So never mind. Yeah. That idea goes out the window.
Yeah, I think they cut it. Some teams don't cut it, actually, and you can watch them when they're in the garage. But, yeah, maybe as they're
maybe
doing
since
repairs.
Work is being done.
Yeah, yeah. Although, I'm not sure exactly how quickly they can resolve that issue, but Kevin Magnussen should be used to driving without power steering. He tested IndyCar a few months back. Of course, IndyCar doesn't have power steering.
Maybe that's what he'll say. Just put me out there. I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, everyone. I'm really happy. Thanks for the help.
Oh, Albon happy with his lap on that team radio.
Yeah, so that confirms that he won't be going out for another run. So 2 minutes, 40 seconds, 39 seconds, 38 seconds left in Q2. The two Mercedes first out on the track. To give you guys a rundown of the order quickly, the drivers at risk are the McLaren of Lando Norris, the Haas of Mick Schumacher, Alex Albon, who is already out of Q2 as he is back in the pits. And then we also have, it's just blocked by the graphics there. Sorry about that. Let me just see who the two other drivers are here.
Pierre Gasly and Guan Yu Zhou.
Guan Yu Zhou, thank you, yes.
So Leclerc crosses the line and start his flying lap. He's going to give a nice toe to Mick Schumacher, who's behind him. And Carlos Sainz will follow. Then after that, the two Alfa Romeos. Lando Norris about to cross the line to start his lap, and then Esteban Ocon as well.
And we're back literally riding with Charles Leclerc here with the helmet cam as he goes down into turn 8. And then coming up here to the tricky section of the track, you go through turn 9, not really much of a turn, and then the downhill left-hand braking turn of turn 10. Very easy to lock up because you're trying to brake as well as turning the wheel at the same time, which is just a good recipe for a front left lockup, but nice and clean there from Leclerc.
It's interesting seeing Mick Schumacher not improve even after getting the toe from Charles Leclerc in his first sector. So something to watch out there for Mick Schumacher. Magnussen hasn't left the garage, so I don't think he's going to get around in time to start a lap. So Magnussen will be hoping that he can survive as he's sitting in 4th right now, and maybe they can get this issue fixed for Q3.
He might be able to. Leclerc not going quicker in the second sector. Schumacher as well not going quicker in the second sector, so might be some changes in track conditions as well.
It looks like Schumacher's way off the pace here.
Yeah, so it doesn't look like he will improve.
Unless he's going to start another lap here, but I don't think so.
Although Leclerc,
no, I think he's just going to go in the pits.
Yeah, Leclerc put in a mighty final sector there, fastest in the third sector, and you're right there, Tyler. I see Schumacher coming in to the pits.
Sainz goes second, 100ths behind Verstappen, so that's a much better improvement. Bottas goes in 8th place. Guan Yu Zhou goes into 12th and will miss out on Q3. Lando Norris puts across the line, and he goes only P12.
Only 12.
Wow. Oh, Zhou lost his time due to track limits at turn 5, so he'll be gone. Perez crossed the line.
Yeah, he's
and
safe
stays fourth.
Now it's just left to the two Mercedes, see where they're going to be safe, obviously, into Q3, but just see their lap times, where they're going to end up.
Alonso goes 8th. 5th fastest for Russell, and Hamilton will go 5th fastest as well. So, I mean, they're showing some decent pace here, the Mercedes. Not terribly behind, and maybe they found something that's set up as Pierre Gasly. Can he stay and get into Q3? Pierre Gasly is going to cross the line and goes 9th.
Wow.
Pierre Gasly, well done. And I think I got all 5 eliminations right in that Q2.
I think you did, yeah. Nicely called there. And that was a mega lap from Gasly because he was in 15th just at the start of that lap, so he really needed it there. So Q2 is officially over. The checkered flag is out. All the drivers have completed their laps and are now heading back into the pits. So just to reiterate, the 5 drivers eliminated from Q2, we have the Alpine of Esteban Ocon, Mick Schumacher, Lando Norris in the McLaren will start in 13th place. Alex Albon for the Williams, first session back in Formula 1 for him, 14th place. And Guan Yu Zhou, his first qualifying session as a Formula 1 driver, ends up in 15th place. So as you said there, Tyler, predicted that perfectly. So I guess you can say you're not much surprised then about that session.
No, exactly how I planned it. I'm really hoping that Magnussen can get his issue fixed for Q3. It'd be awesome to see K-Mag in Q3.
Gasly Radio.
P9! P9! Wow.
So some of our predictions are maybe going to be slightly off this year. I predicted AlphaTauri to be up there as the 5th best team, and they were struggling to make it into Q3 versus Alfa Romeo, who I picked as the worst team and has Valtteri Bottas up there in 10th.
Now, I will say that it was a long season, so things can obviously change throughout the season. Oh, team radio?
Yeah, Norris was just asking which place he was in.
So everyone, what was your thoughts on that Q2? Any surprises for you guys to see who's up in Q3 and who did not make it to Q3? I'd like to hear your feedback.
Yeah, good session, that one. Again, obviously, Kevin Magnussen, the big surprise for me, sitting there in 7th place. Like you said, Tyler, hopefully he can get out once again. Although it looks like they just cut to him in the garage. Not really much work going on, although they're down. Yeah, they got the side pod off on the right-hand side of the car. Looks like they are working on some sort of an issue, but I don't know if they're maybe just topping up some of the hydraulic pressures, but they got the tire blankets on. The driver is still in the car, so hopefully he can get out on track.
Yeah, hopefully, even if it's just for one run at the end of the session, that's all he needs. Put on a fresh set of softs and go out for it. So fingers crossed, maybe we'll see Magnussen in a top 5 position. I mean, it's quite possible.
Yeah, that would be pretty crazy.
That's a wild week for him, or 2 weeks for him after, having a vacation in Miami with his family to all of a sudden possibly a top 5 in qualifying.
Well, and it makes it all the more impressive that, for example, somebody like Nico Hulkenberg, who is an official reserve driver, would have been doing some work in the simulator, would have had an idea of what these cars are like, for example. But Kevin Magnussen was literally thrown right into the deep end of the pool with absolutely zero feel for these new cars and haven't been in Formula 1 in almost 20 months. So he was, of course, set to race at Sebring this weekend, actually. Of course, Sebring currently happening at the moment there in Florida. So he was, in race shape, for example, but still, I mean, it's a completely different car. It's a completely different formula, but he's done an absolutely fantastic job and outqualified his teammate by a good amount.
He was mentioning too, just if there's anything that needs to be trained, it's going to be his neck, and he said, that's like that for any driver, especially with a year off. But he said he'll be feeling his neck after the weekend, and it wouldn't surprise me, of course, the crazy G-forces that go through these drivers and their neck getting a really good workout.
And just on his teammate too, I think let's give some credit to Mick Schumacher as well, who as we saw there on the replay, made a mistake there in the high-speed section of 11 and 12, but still, it is his best ever career qualifying result in Formula One. He is starting tomorrow's race in 12th, so if the Haas race pace is good, starting in 12th there will be a excellent opportunity for Mick to get his first ever Formula One point. So I think a big shout out there to Mick Schumacher and Haas as well for almost getting both drivers into Q3.
Yeah, really impressive. I'm glad to see Haas up there once more. It's nice to see that team going strong. And we were wondering who was going to be up there and who was going to be the surprise. And there was some inkling that maybe Haas could pull out some punches and be a lot closer than they were last year. But I don't think anyone was expecting Kevin Magnussen to possibly have a top 5 time coming up here in Q3 if he can get his power steering figured out.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're just seeing here the gaps too at the end there in Q2. We had Carlos Sainz only 3/100ths of a second off of P1 Max Verstappen, and then Charles Leclerc too only almost 0.2 off there of Max Verstappen. So if we can kind of get that final result there in Q3 of it being that close, it's going to be really interesting as well. And even Sergio Perez not that far behind as well. So top 4 I think is going to be separated by only a few 100ths of a second.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really close for the pole position, which is awesome. So I hope it would be interesting to see what Sergio Perez does. He's been quite off of Max Verstappen so far in both qualifying sessions, and would like to see a little bit more improvement for him to get him closer to Max through qualifying.
And another kind of teammate battle we haven't talked too much about is the Mercedes battle with George Russell and Lewis Hamilton. Of course, this is George Russell's forte, Mr. Saturday. It is qualifying, but so far, Lewis Hamilton looks to have the upper hand on Russell, going 0.2 quicker in that Q2 run, but we'll see what the gap is here at the end of Q3. It's going to be interesting to see how close Russell can actually get to Hamilton on his first attempt here with the first race of the year. But it looks like they're most likely going to be lining up on row 3 right next to each other.
Yeah, the pace seems to be pretty equal between the two drivers, which is a good inkling on the pace of the Mercedes. I mean, we can actually get a very good idea of where it sits in the grid.
So we're still waiting for the start of Q3, the final session here. Tyler, if you're still okay for time afterwards, I think we'll just do a quick 10 or 15 minute post wrap-up show after qualifying, and maybe we'll just put that out as a separate video later this afternoon, just to kind of give our thoughts on the first session of the year and a quick look ahead to tomorrow's race as well. So looks like we're about to get the green light for Q3. So with that being said, I will get the live timing back up on the screen. And yeah, get your seatbelts buckled in here. Who you still sticking by your pre-show predictions for pole?
Hey, it's still sticking with or by my guns. I have Charles Leclerc getting pole position.
Yeah, I'm still sticking by mine as well, as they just cut to the man who I believe will get pole, Max Verstappen.
So how much can Mercedes turn up that engine to get closer to the top 2 teams here?
Well,
Used set of soft tires for Hamilton, looks like.
I think they're going to need to turn it up by about 5 or 6 tenths worth.
Where's party mode? Is party mode still a thing?
Yeah.
So yeah, used sets of tires coming out for the Mercedes, and both Ferraris, I think, are going to have new sets of soft tires as they saved a set in Q1.
Yeah, we've seen there's really been kind of the consistency through the first 2 sessions of both Mercedes coming out one behind another. I'm curious of how much the slipstream or the tow is worth this season with the new regulations. I knew some drivers in Barcelona were commenting that it was actually a little bit more difficult to slipstream this season with the new ground effect aero philosophy. So I'm wondering if the tow is as powerful as it was in recent years.
No, that's a very good point. Very good point, Chris. It doesn't look like Kevin Magnussen is going to be coming out for Q3. That's what Ted Kravitz just said in the pit lane. So that's unfortunate for Kevin. I was really hoping to see him out on the track in Q3.
And see, that's going to be the problem is, regardless of the fact that they've shown great pace, they've also shown reliability issues in the first 2 weeks of testing, as with Alfa Romeo. So that's going to be the problem, is they're going to need to really get those issues figured out, which is why a lot of people are pegging Ferrari as the championship favorites right now, just because you've seen, even through this weekend, very smooth running, the car is very quick, not a lot of porpoising, it just really looks like a complete package.
So they're showing Magnussen here, and well, they have both side pods on. Tire blanket's still on. Driver's still in the car, so just interesting to see what's going to happen.
Send him out there.
I think they should. He's used to no power steering.
Yeah.
As Russell's going to be first across the line, Hamilton will follow to start his flying lap, then the two Ferraris, Leclerc and Sainz.
Didn't see too much.
Sorry, Chris, go ahead.
No, sorry, I was just going to say I didn't see too much bouncing there from the Mercedes, but it was hard to see on the wide shot.
Pierre Gasly is also out there as well, and he's just doing his out lap.
So George Russell actually going quicker in the first sector than his teammate Lewis Hamilton, but Hamilton has really seemed to found some time in the second sector. But Russell currently with the best purple sector.
Carlos Sainz at 29.0 in the first sector. That's a full 9/10 faster than Hamilton in the first sector. And mind you, Hamilton's on a set of used soft tires, not new soft tires.
Yeah, still that's a pretty big gap, as
yes,
we're seeing that there. I think Verstappen also currently out on track as well. He set the fastest first sector, so it looks like he's going pretty quick there. As we're going to get the first timed laps up on the screen.
Yeah, so here comes Russell to enter the final corner. Nice and clean out of that final corner, and George Russell will come up with DRS open, cross the line, 132.2, which is nowhere close to what the quality time is going to be. Hamilton beats him with a 132.1, but that should not be representative of times. Wow, Carlos Sainz. Sorry, pardon that. Sorry, that was Leclerc, 130.7.
Yeah, no.
130.6 for Sainz.
Carlos Sainz. Oh, but it's very... Yeah, look at the times between Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc. You got Verstappen on a 130.743 and Charles Leclerc on a 130.731.
Wow.
Tell you what, Pierre Gasly not on a bad lap here. Had a little bit of a moment at the exit of 11. Oh yeah, that really seemed to have lost him a ton of time. He had a purple first sector, and now showing that he's 2 seconds off of Carlos Sainz's time.
Wow. Yeah, must have had a tough second sector, but some positives to take if you're Pierre Gasly. If he can get back into the pits, and I'm not sure if they have another fresh set of soft tires available for Gasly, but that would be ideal for him as he crosses the line and goes P7.
I think we see this, though. It's typical of Bahrain, where the first sector is really... sort of, I could describe it as an easy sector. You've got, obviously, the big main straight, and then you've got the other sort of longer straight following turns 2. So I think that, in terms of engine performances, really, you can really make it up, but I think that the better cars and the drivers can really extract more lap times out of the sectors 2 and then 3, especially in sector 2.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, a lot of sector 1 will come down to the straight line speed of your car and traction coming out of those slow corners.
So Verstappen commenting that his tires were shit and that he wants to do his own out lap. So I would assume that means that he just wants to be sent out on a free piece of track. Maybe he came out behind his teammate or behind another driver. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So after the first runs there in Q3, we see Carlos Sainz put in a phenomenal lap, although not much in it, only 4/100ths of a second quicker than his Ferrari teammate Charles Leclerc. Max Verstappen well within the fight as well, only 5/100ths of a second. Then you got Sergio Perez in P4. He's 3/10 off, so he's still got plenty of time to find there. But really, Tyler, I want to just highlight this gap here as the 5 minutes to go graphic just comes up on the screen. Look at the gap between Hamilton and Perez there. Almost a second.
Yeah, and obviously the Mercedes were on used soft tires, but that's still a second and a quarter difference between Mercedes and Red Bull, which is not what they want to see. I don't think a new set of soft tires is going to get you 1.2 seconds in difference.
Yeah, I don't think so. So, I mean, 5th and 6th has really been their position so far in this qualifying session. But we do have 3 drivers who have yet to set a lap time. Of course, Kevin Magnussen, we're not sure of his status, if he'll be able to get out. But it looks like his day might be done. And then you also have Fernando Alonso and Valtteri Bottas, who I believe only had 1 set of new soft tires, as we see Bottas is going to come out on track at the moment. So he should have a free and empty track for him. So I'm curious as to see where Valtteri can set his time here. I mean, you've got Pierre Gasly, who I think he can go faster than, but can he get close to the Mercedes?
It's going to be really interesting to see. I mean, Pierre can get a lot out of that car. Which is interesting to see how much he can get out of that car. I was just trying to see who comes out ahead of who here. Sainz comes out ahead of Charles Leclerc. Interesting to note.
All right, so this is it. The final runs here. We got all the cars coming out on track at the moment.
Except for Kevin Magnussen. Oh, no, he is out on the track.
He is. Oh, there he is.
There he is. Kevin Magnussen coming out. That's awesome.
So 1 lap K-Mag. Let's see what he can do.
He's got a fresh new set of soft tires on, as everyone does out there right now.
I'm excited.
I'm just going to keep his onboard on here, Chris, just to see if there's any issues. But I will keep Magnussen's onboard handy.
Yeah, if there's got any maybe team radio communications, if he's updating them on the status of the car. But it's fantastic to see that he'll at least get a chance to set a lap. Of course, a little bit difficult with not having a reference with the first run of the lap, but he's in the same boat as Alonso and Bottas as well, who are only going to set 1 flying lap. So really, we're at the battle for pole here. Seems to be between 3 drivers, unless Sergio Perez can jump in there as well. He's got you got to find a good solid couple of tenths of a second, but as we saw there, Tyler, in Q2 as well, a lot of drivers on their second runs not making many improvements. So we'll see what happens here in the next 2 minutes and 12 seconds.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens here as about to get things kicked off here. As Russell and Hamilton start the flying laps. After that will be Bottas and Leclerc. And then following him will be Sainz, Alonso, then Magnussen, Verstappen, and Perez.
And Russell was really sparking away there as his car almost bottoming out into the braking zone of turn 1. Really surprised to see a lot of these cars, especially through the high-speed sections, already sparking away. Of course, technically ride height should be a little bit higher, but I think the teams have really figured out a fix for that porpoising issue, allowing them to run a little bit lower at their cars as Russell sets the fastest first sector.
Yeah, it said it was 9/10 off of Sainz's time, but I don't think that's right. Let me get to the data here.
Yeah.
And first sector for Russell was a 30. Well, no, it's right. It was a 30 on the nose.
Yeah, Charles
I'm
Leclerc.
not sure how that's a purple.
Leclerc didn't improve in his first sector, but he's only 7/100ths of a second off of Sainz's best time. So let's see Russell here in the middle sector. This is where Mercedes have seemed to be losing out onto Ferrari and Red Bull. And yeah, if that time is accurate, they're at 1.4 seconds off of Sainz there. Hamilton going quicker.
Yeah, it is accurate.
So I'm looking at Hamilton's time. Maybe we'll be able to pip Sergio Perez for 4th there, as Leclerc goes quickest in the middle sector, so he's improving on his time. Russell stays 6th fastest.
I would have liked to see Russell pull out of that lap and start another flying lap.
And there we go. Wow, Valtteri Bottas out-qualifies George Russell. And Charles Leclerc. So here we go, Tyler. This is going to be the battle here. Max Verstappen coming into turn 14 here. He's 1/100th of a second quicker than Charles Leclerc. Purple first sector, personal best in the middle sector. Let's see what happens here. It's clean exit out of turn 15.
Kevin Magnussen about to cross the line here as well.
Magnussen in 7.
Magnussen.
Wow.
Verstappen second.
So close. Wow, there it is, Tyler. You've been really hitting the predictions this morning. Charles Leclerc takes the first pole position of 2022. We got a yellow flag out in Sector 1, but...
That's Kevin Magnussen.
Oh, okay. The difference in the end there, 1/10 of a second between Leclerc and Verstappen, will be very interesting in a few hours to break down their laps and see where the difference was. But it is a Ferrari 1-3. Let's listen to Leclerc.
Let's go, baby. Let's go. Come on.
Well, I wish I put
I knew it was in it.
some money on.
I just had to put everything together. So it wasn't a very clean session for me.
Listening to Charles Leclerc. I wish I put some money on Leclerc for pole. I should have stuck with my guns there. And I'm just going to get on the driver cam here for Kevin Magnussen since no one's showing us anything. And he's just stopped at the end of turn 1, engine off, and taking the headrest off. So maybe something that the Haas team saw and wanted to save the car as much as they could for the race.
I hope he'll be okay for the race.
Yeah, I hope so too. We interested to hear after the fact what the issue might be. A phenomenal lap by K-Mag.
Science Radio?
Yeah, good recovery, guys. Want them to find there. If we keep working, we will find it. But it's a good recovery. Difficult weekend.
So, very good start there for Ferrari then in 2022. The 1-3 there. We got Max Verstappen, who was able to split them, but very, very close between the top 3, which is exactly what we want to see. And it's unfortunate at the moment. Doesn't look like Mercedes will necessarily be in it here in the first race, and we're going to get to it in a few moments' time as we do a little bit of a post-show breakdown. But the drivers just currently in Parc Fermé getting out of their cars.
We'll get everyone's reactions to this first qualifying session. What's the general consensus of everyone the first qualifying? Expecting, what were your surprises? What were you expecting that came true? Pretty interesting stuff, I think, out of this first session.
I would say very, very interesting. And Tyler, you're okay for time, right? Just do a quick
yeah,
wrap-up?
absolutely.
Okay, good. Excellent. Yeah, we'll just maybe wait a few minutes here until the drivers get out of their cars and maybe hear some comments. But I think it was a fantastic first qualifying session there. And I think what's interesting about this season, and we talked about this in our season preview as well, which is available on all podcast platforms everywhere if you still want to give it a listen, is that this is the order in the first race, but it could be very different by the time we get to Imola, for example, or even Saudi Arabia next week. So this is the order for now, but it might not be the order as we get to the middle point of the year.
Yeah, lots of development will be taking place this year and lots of major upgrades, I'm sure, as these teams figure out this new car. So there's going to be lots of changing throughout the season, I think. This seems to be the initial starting point, but some team could come out with an upgrade that upgrades their car by 0.3 of a second all of a sudden. So we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but excited to see what the development race will be like this year.
Yeah, for sure. Just interesting to see or hear from the drivers there as we see Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, as well as the Red Bulls in the background as well. So Kevin Magnussen, in the end, did you end up hearing what the issue was, that why he had to stop out on track?
No, I didn't hear the issue, unfortunately. So we'll have to wait and see in the media pen what Kevin Magnussen says.
Yeah, I'll try and see if I can maybe find it on Twitter as well from the official Haas account to see why he had to stop. But I'm hoping he'll be okay for the race tomorrow and he won't have to take a grid penalty or anything like that.
Yeah, that would be no good, especially there's a power unit on on the first race of the season. Also, only 3 before penalties. And of course, with the cost cap as well, that's not going to play a beneficiary as well in the cost. Those engines are pretty expensive.
Yeah. So it looks like Leclerc is about to go and speak with, I'm not sure who's doing the post-qualifying interviews, but we're just going to listen to the drivers a little bit and then do a quick wrap-up show. So stick with us for the next 50 minutes or so, and also interact with us in the chat, as we're not done just yet. So yeah, David Coulthard hosting the interviews.
A new era of Formula One, and Charles, the first pole position of the year. What a fantastic start for Ferrari. They're back.
Yeah, it feels good. I mean, the last 2 years have been incredibly difficult for the team, and yeah, we were quite hopeful that this new opportunity for us was an opportunity to be back in the front, and I think we have worked extremely well as a team to find ourselves again in a position to fight for better places. So very happy with today. It's been a very tricky qualifying session. I wasn't completely happy with my driving, but managed to do that lap in the in Q3, and we're starting from pole, so very happy.
It'd be very interesting also to see his lap, hopefully from his visor cam.
Yes, that'd be really cool. I'm sure that'll be on the F1 YouTube.
You'd hope so. I think that's going to be the first visor cam pole position in the history of F1.
That's true. Yeah, probably.
So that was Leclerc. We're going to also hear from Max and then Carlos Sainz as well. And I know
much more to come, he says.
Yeah.
Charles Leclerc.
I guess I'll bring back the audio for you guys listening at home.
To come, hopefully, from us.
Pace-wise, we've got the first comparison. It's never the same day in history, of course, but we can see the lap time comparisons now with these new cars. We've been talking a lot about a little bit of increase in weight, maybe not quite so nimble at low speed. When it came to qualifying trim, though, what is the feeling?
It feels quite good. It feels quite good. We were pretty sure that Red Bull was going to be a bit quicker than us, also in qualifying, but yeah, good surprise. It wasn't the case. So now we need to finish the weekend on a high tomorrow. It's not going to be easy. Tire degradation here is a thing, and especially with this increase of weights there this year, no? So we need to focus on that and hopefully have a good race tomorrow.
So the message is that today was great, but cautious approach for the actual race pace relative to Red Bull.
Yeah.
Oh, really good interview there by Charles, I thought.
Stay cautious. Yeah. I mean, the pace is there, but...
lots of interesting stuff. Good questions from David Coulthard. Max Verstappen up next.
Yeah, you got like 3 or 4 questions in there.
Yeah.
But what it does is confirm Ferrari do look like your main competitor right now. Was there anything that was left there, or was that pure performance on this day?
Well, it's a bit difficult to tell. I think it was a bit of hit and miss. Like Q2 seemed quite good, then Q3 was a bit more of a struggle to get the balance together. But nevertheless, I think it was all right. I think we have a good car, good race car as well, which at the end of the day is the most important. Yeah, it was a good day overall. It's a good start, to the new era.
You actually seem relatively, let's say, not subdued, but Charles is talking a little bit. Let's see what the race is tomorrow.
Yeah,
this is the first opportunity for you all to really exploit the qualifying performance of these cars. So let's see what it's like in your cockpit. How was the balance? How did the car feel with these radical changes?
Not fantastic, but also not too bad. Otherwise, you cannot be in this position, So yeah, a few things, of course, to look into, and we'll try to do better for next time. But here it's a bit of you want to be good in qualifying, of course, but you also really want to make sure your car is working for the race, because the tires are really struggling a lot more there, and it's a bit different to some other tracks. But
interesting to hear both
nice,
drivers talking
really
about the tires and just how they are going to degrade a lot faster, and it's going to be a wild card for tomorrow's race.
Over the winter, and hopefully it's going to be an exciting race.
You must be disappointed that Mercedes seem to be off the pace.
Very, very.
Congratulations on that second place.
Just go Coulthard.
Carlos Sainz,
yeah, congratulations.
Making it a very strong day for Ferrari. Carlos
Sainz.
Race drivers always want to be number one in the team in terms of outright pace. Was there any more in your car today, or that was what you could deliver?
Well, there was that extra tenth, that Charles managed to extract there at the end. To be fair, I'm quite happy with the progress I've done throughout the weekend. I've been very far off.
We got one driver who's
really
pretty
struggling with this car to understand how to drive it, and I've been more than half a second, behind all weekend, and so to be even fighting for the pole position today in qualifying was good news for me, and to put together a good lap there at the beginning of Q3 and then not managing to extract that last tenth is a pity, but at the same time, it's deserved. I think Charles has been ahead the whole weekend, and he deserved the pole position. And
I know we commented on this, Tyler, in our season preview, but Ferrari colors, the suits look great, everything looks great.
Everything looks phenomenal. They really nailed their livery and all their merch this year.
The problem is that I've never been so far behind. You know, last year at the max, I was a couple of tenths in some circuits where I was not feeling entirely comfortable. This weekend, I've had to fight a 7 to 8 tenth deficit from FP1 and having to catch back. I just don't understand the car fully yet, and I'm struggling. I'm thinking a lot while driving, and this takes a bit of space out of my head while driving. But at the same time, you know, I was on fight for the pole position, so I cannot complain too much. They managed to extract that last tenth when it counted, but for how much I'm thinking while driving,
so good interview from all three drivers there, as Charles Leclerc will sign his tire. I think that's still a thing.
Yeah. So what is that? That's his third pole position of his career?
Something like, oh yeah, there's the tire. It's there.
Very, very well-deserved pole position then as well. So it looks like we still got a few of you guys in the chat. We're going to get right into our post-qualifying show right now at the moment for another 10 or 15 minutes or so. So plenty of time to still talk with us in the chat as well. So welcome to the post-qualifying debrief show here on the Backmarkers F1 Show channel. Chris Cato alongside Tyler McDonald to just quickly recap and break down the first qualifying session of 2022, which was very exciting, and we really enjoyed being live for that first session as well with all of our subscribers and fans. But we got Charles Leclerc taking the first pole position of 2022 with a very solid lap, just quickly ahead of Max Verstappen by only about a tenth, and Carlos Sainz, his teammate, rounding out the top three as well. So Tyler, I'll get your immediate reaction and thoughts after qualifying. What really stood out to you there in that first session as well? We're going to get to the front end of the field as well, talking about the race tomorrow. But what were some things that really stood out to you in this first qualifying session in Bahrain?
What really stood out, a two-horse race once again, but this time instead of Mercedes and Red Bull, it's Ferrari and Red Bull. I mean, it really seems like they are the two teams that are way ahead of the others, which is interesting to see. I think we were expecting to see that, but I don't think we were expecting to see as big of a gap as we do see between excuse me, them and the other teams. So that's one thing that stood out. The other thing that stood out is a lot of surprises. Well done, Valtteri Bottas, and well done, Kevin Magnussen.
Yes, and that is a great segue there into talk about the big surprises of qualifying in 2022 so far is Valtteri Bottas, who I know we give Driver of the Day awards, but we can give Driver of the Qualifying awards here because Valtteri Bottas, P6 for Alfa Romeo after Alfa Romeo had a terrible testing, a lot of reliability issues. Even in FP1, Bottas had reliability issues, and he ends up putting it 6th place. But more importantly, guys, look at that top 10. Valtteri out-qualifying George Russell in the Mercedes, the driver who took his seat going into this season, and now he's out-qualified him.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Interesting to see how it's going to turn out in the race as well. We saw those two get into it last year at Imola. Is there going to be more controversy between those two drivers? Of course, they were competing for that Mercedes seat, but it might be Valtteri getting the last lap this weekend. At least it is for Saturday. So interesting to see with the results between those two teams.
Yeah, just a spectacular lap from him. And we should also note that Bottas was able to do that lap on only one new set of soft tires. So he went out just at the end of the session, only had one chance and one run at it, and eventually put himself into 6th place. So let's see what the Alfa Romeo race pace is going to be like. We're going to just quickly comment on the race tomorrow in a few minutes' time. But moving down the rest of the grid, the next driver that you could give possibly the award to Driver of the Day to, and maybe a little bit more deserving of Bottas, just in the fact that a week ago, he wasn't really even in Formula One, and that's obviously Kevin Magnussen, who qualifies in P7 for Haas. Just a tremendous turnaround for Haas. 12 months ago here at the Bahrain International Circuit, they were dead last. They were looking awful, and now they almost had both drivers in Q3. But Magnussen out-qualified Mick Schumacher by more than 0.4 of a second. Magnussen did have some hydraulic issues with the power steering, which really didn't see him get out until the final 3 minutes of Q3. And much like Bottas, only had one chance to get a good lap in. And boy, did he ever get a good lap in. He outqualified the Alpine of Alonso, the Mercedes of George Russell, the AlphaTauri of Pierre Gasly. Hopefully he doesn't have any lingering issues for tomorrow's race, Tyler, because he's starting P7.
Yeah, phenomenal by K-Mag, and it will be interesting to see. His car did stop at the end of turn one after that lap, and he got out of the car, couldn't bring it back to the pit. So whether that was a major issue or a precaution just to stop the car and not let it run any further is yet to be seen. We haven't had any team radio, so we'll see what the Haas team says in the media pen. But hopefully that means no grid penalties for Magnussen going into tomorrow's race, because I'd really like to see what he's going to do tomorrow. I mean, what if there's a phenomenal race pace behind that Haas? If there's a collision up front, I mean, we could see a Haas on the podium if all the cards are played right. And I know that's taking it kind of over the top, but I mean, if you have a couple of malfunctions up front and a crash or two between the two leaders, Kevin Magnussen will be right there.
He absolutely will be, and we know just how good of a racer Magnussen is, and he hasn't been in Formula One in almost 17 months, but he has been doing plenty of racing in the World Endurance Championship, which he was supposed to be at this weekend at Sebring, but he's now in Bahrain, so he's going to be ready to get his elbows out for sure. And just before we move on into the further down the field, we're going to stick right now into the top three, and of course, a very, very close session between the two Ferraris and the Red Bull of Max Verstappen. In the end, there was only about a tenth of a second that really separated the top three in as well. But it is Charles Leclerc on pole position, scoring his third career pole and his first pole position since Monza back in 2019. Or excuse me, back in Singapore in 2019 was his last pole. I believe he has 4 poles in his career now. So a great start for Ferrari, Tyler, so far here in 2022. They got a 1-3, of course, split by the Red Bull. What are you expecting for tomorrow's race when these three drivers line up alongside each other? We had Verstappen-Hamilton all of 2021, but this Leclerc-Verstappen rivalry has gotten pretty spicy in the past as well.
It has. There's been some elbows out in the past, and I think we're going to see more of it as well. I think it's going to be, turn one's going to be very interesting to see who gets into there first and how aggressive they're all going to be with each other. How aggressive is Carlos Sainz? Is he going to get a toe into turn one and send it down the inside of Verstappen? And I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out, of course. But what I think is going to be the most interesting thing going into tomorrow is if all these drivers are complaining about the tires and how much they degrade, how much is that going to really affect the race? Are we going to see a two-stop race? Are we going to see teams start on hard tires? Are we going to see teams start on soft tires or mediums? It's going to be very interesting to see the strategic output of tomorrow's race. And I'm really interested to see how bad these tires are for degrading, as the teams are complaining about. It could be a real talking point tomorrow if we start seeing punctures and everything.
Yeah, we really don't know what the situation is in terms of race pace with these teams. Of course, this is, as we mentioned at the top of the show, the order as of the moment, but this could change all within a couple of races' time. But it kind of gives us a good idea of how the teams stack up. And just before we move on into some of the other teams outside of the top 10, let's just quickly touch on Mercedes, who a lot of people thought that they were sandbagging. They thought they were going to turn up the engines and be back to the Mercedes of old. But it really does seem like they are struggling at the beginning of this season. You have Lewis Hamilton in 5th, who is 0.6 of a second off the pole time of Charles Leclerc. Really disappointing, though, for me personally, was George Russell, who ended up in 9th, 1.6 seconds off of Charles Leclerc's time and quite a ways away from his teammate, because this is supposed to be George Russell's strength. He is Mr. Saturday, but was quite off the pace in Q3 especially.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he says, too, in the media pen and what went wrong in qualifying. But you're right, the Mercedes, as people thought, just isn't up there yet. And we saw how bad the porpoising, the bouncing is, how stiff that Mercedes car is. And it seems like they're fighting it all the way along the track. And maybe the drivers just don't have the confidence in the car yet to respond to where they would like it to. With all that oversteer we've been seeing from Hamilton throughout the race, and George Russell is just in the media pen right now with Sky Sports as well. So it'll be interesting. I'm sure that audio will come out just momentarily. Wow, I mean, we knew that they were going to be off the pace, but it'll be interesting to see how fast they can recover and get back up there and make it a 3-horse race.
And of course, points are handed out on a Sunday and not a Saturday, so it is possible that their race pace is far better than their one-lap pace, and they can move a couple of spots up the grid, but I think it will be difficult there with Hamilton starting. And again, I'll just make the comment, as you see in the timing screen, you see Hamilton and Bottas lining up alongside each other once again, but two different teams this time around. So it's just very funny how things really end up working out in Formula One when we thought Bottas was going to be maybe out in Q1 even.
Yeah, absolutely. We thought that the Alfa Romeos weren't going to be that quick. I mean, there is a big difference, though. His teammate down in 15th position. Obviously, it's his first qualifying session, so we'll go easy on the rookie. But it just shows you what maybe the real pace of the Alfa Romeo is, and how much an experienced driver like Valtteri Bottas will play a factor in this season, learning a new car quickly and getting up to speed. But good for Guan Yu Zhao to get out of Q1 in his first ever qualifying.
Yeah, I think he did a pretty solid job, but it shows the potential of the Alfa Romeo and also just shows how good of a driver Valtteri Bottas is. I mean, let's put some respect on his name. He is a very quick and experienced driver, and this is exactly what Alfa Romeo needed because, with all due respect to Raikkonen and Giovinazzi in the last few years, they just weren't at that level where they could extract the most out of the car in every single weekend. So very good to see there from Alfa Romeo. I just wanted to quickly put this photo up in the middle of the screen as you see Gunter Steiner extremely delighted and excited with the performance there from Kevin Magnussen. He's got a tremendous smile on his face. We haven't seen that from Gunter Steiner in many, many years now. But also, not just Kevin Magnussen, let's give some credit to his teammate Mick Schumacher. His career best qualifying of P12. He is a few tenths off of Magnussen. I know he won't be happy with that, with, of course, his teammate just jumping in the car really last week. But regardless, this is an excellent start for Haas to build upon for this season. And as we look at where Mick Schumacher is in terms of for the race tomorrow, 12th place, not a bad starting position. He outqualified both McLarens, outqualified both of the Aston Martins, and as well as the lone AlphaTauri of Yuki Tsunoda. So let's get into talking about some of the aspects for tomorrow's race there, Tyler. I mean, I know a lot of question marks still remain in terms of race pace and how these teams are doing, but what are you expecting for tomorrow's race at the Bahrain Grand Prix?
I really, it's a hull up in the air because, again, I'm interested to see how these tires held up. How big of a factor is that going to be in the race? How are these cars going to be able to follow each other? Are we going to see more overtaking? Are we going to be able to see more closer racing? That's what we've been promised, and we're going to get a first glimpse of if it's going to happen tomorrow. So those are my two real talking points in terms of actually watching the race. In terms of the drivers, I mean, obviously it's going to be a battle up top between Red Bull and Ferrari, but can Haas get a double points finish? That's going to be a talking point for me as well. And how off the pace are all these other teams in race pace? I mean, can Aston Martin somehow find some race pace? Maybe they just don't have the qualifying speed, but they have a car set up for the race. Same with the Williams. So something that I'll be interested in to see how these teams that didn't really come out and do well today will come out on Sunday and see if they can recover.
And of course, some of the things that we mentioned in the preseason too, that tomorrow we're finally going to get to see is what kind of racing are we going to get? How close can these cars follow? Some of the things we mentioned even during the qualifying stream of how effective will the slipstream be with these new regulations and all of these factors that come into play. We saw some bit of back and forth racing in testing, but it's nothing like the actual real thing when points are on the line and when all 20 cars are out on the grid. So tomorrow will be very, very exciting to finally see these new era of cars and to see if Formula One have finally gotten it right and we can get the closer racing that we are expecting. I think that will be, as much as we're interested in what the order is going to be, I think that will be a big talking point after tomorrow as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And how much is this going to transition into Saudi Arabia as well? I think that will be an interesting talk for, and obviously we'll talk about that after the race and everything, but it's going to be a really fun weekend, I think, tomorrow.
Yeah, very much looking forward to it. Of course, we will not be live tomorrow for a race watch-along, so you'll have to watch a race without us, unfortunately, but we do appreciate everybody that's tuned in to our post-race debrief show and also who joined us for our live stream this morning. We will be doing some live streams for qualifying and practice sessions this year, So just stay tuned to our channel when those announcements come as well. So very interesting first qualifying session as well. We're really curious to hear what you guys have to say and think about this first session, so please comment them down below. Tyler, I'll get your final thoughts on this first qualifying session. I'll just throw mine out there. Firstly, really disappointing day, I think, from the two McLarens, who I did not expect to see so far down the order, and just really, really struggling to make it into Q2 even at some points. And Daniel Ricciardo continuing with his struggles as well from last season by the looks of it. And then as well, just seeing Aston Martin really off the pace was quite a big surprise. I didn't expect them to be that far off with both drivers eliminated in Q1. Nonetheless, though, I think Hulkenberg putting in that lap time was pretty spectacular. So those are just some of the disappointments that I've seen in terms of the drivers and the teams. I'll get your final thoughts then to wrap up the show.
Yeah, I would agree with those comments, Chris, as well as I'm just really excited that F1 is back. It's nice to see it back, 23 races this year. It's going to be a long season for the drivers, for the teams, and for us. It's going to be a grind, but we're looking forward to what's going to be a phenomenal season, hopefully, and one to remember with this new era.
Absolutely, and hopefully it's going to be made a lot easier with the support of our fans and our supporters all across YouTube and other social media platforms as well. So thanks everybody for watching our post-qualifying debrief show for the Bahrain Grand Prix, and thank you to all of you as well who tuned in to watch us live. Hopefully we got to all of your live chats and all of your comments. If not, don't worry, comment them down below in this video as well, and then we will get back to you as soon as possible. Hopefully we can get to all your comments, and also just drop your predictions for the race on Sunday. It should be a very, very exciting first race of the season. And of course, the Backmarkers F1 show will be here post-race at the Bahrain Grand Prix to break it all down for you guys with our podcast show and other videos as well. It's going to be a quick turnaround though. Saudi Arabia is next week already, first doubleheader of the year. So like you said, Tyler, the grind has already begun. So that'll do it then for our live stream and post-qualifying debrief show. Again, thank you very much for everybody for tuning in this morning and afternoon. We hope you have yourselves a great day. For Tyler McDonald, I've been Chris Cato. Enjoy the race tomorrow, guys, and we'll see you soon.